Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls and bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do, especially with the holiday season. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the window for the potential reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe that January 2020 is the most plausible date, and that date is coming quickly. And the information since our last call about 2 weeks ago points even more strongly to the January 2021 date as the most plausible date. So let's bottom line the basic information as we see it today in Iraq. Now, the World Trade Organization has announced that they plan on bringing Iraq into membership as early as January. Now, this is important because the Iraqi dinar must be on the Forex in order for membership in the World Trade Organization to make any sense. They're not going to be able to conduct worldwide transactions without a viable global currency. Iraq is also moving very quickly to computerize their customs procedures, which dovetails with what the World Trade Organization wants. They're utilizing a system called the ASACODA system, and this system is needed in order to comply with the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And once again, it makes no sense to plug into this system unless their currency is on the Forex and it's a viable global currency. The IMF has announced that they have agreed to lift their 6-month moratorium on loans to Iraq, and they've agreed to lend Iraq $7 billion for the payment of government salaries from September through December, or the last quarter of the year. Once again, this points to the fact that they're all moving very methodically to January of 2021. The IMF went on to explain its decision to lift the moratorium, stating that the fact that the Kazemi government did issue the white papers and that there were 3 critical components in the white paper reforms. One, it addressed the specific reforms with regard to the budget deficit. Second, it had a very plausible and sustainable 3-year economic growth plan. And third, it includes the immediate completion of the project to delete the zeros. So this is all very good news. And once again, everything seems to be moving to January of 2021. Last issue. They are continuing with the auctions, at least for the time being. However, the Parliament Financial Committee and the Kazemi government have worked together to computerize all currency auctions for 2 reasons. First, to substantially reduce the transactions cost, and second, to eliminate all future transactions theft. So, however you look at this, this is all good news. And this means that January 2021 remains the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the dinar in country, meaning that the IMF taking the Iraqi dinar out of the program rate should certainly happen within somewhere between 10 and 30 days after the reinstitution. Now, this means that people are literally running out of time to get their affairs in order prior to the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies. Now, most individuals that are holders of the dinar are not wealthy individuals. They're hardworking middle-class Americans who, for the first time, will need to manage a rather substantial amount of money, a windfall. And to that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. So let's start with phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. There are some very good reasons why we have established a package of irrevocable trusts. Simply put, it's the best form of privacy and asset protection available domestically. Now, there are other entities that people can and have established to provide some level of asset protection, but they don't come close to the protection available with a package of irrevocable trusts. For example, some individuals have established LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they too provide some level of asset protection, primarily by dividing business assets from personal assets. But the problem here is that the possession of these currencies is a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority either by one person or a closely held group like a family or a married couple can be pierced for civil litigation. So that makes the LLC and the sub-S corporation insufficient for our needs. Some individuals have established an entity referred to as a revocable living trust or loving trust. And these trusts are statutory trusts. They will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate the federal estate tax. But the revocable or living trust can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established single irrevocable trusts, and they provide even greater asset protection, but even a single irrevocable trust has one flaw, and it's this. If any asset within that trust gets dragged into civil litigation, that would drag all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation as well, because they're all owned by that same legal entity or person. The solution is to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to explain to you why this will provide the best asset protection, and most importantly, why this trust package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. So let's review some of these benefits. First, by establishing this package of trusts, you will protect your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably going to be looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time that these currencies are revalued, and there are many more much important things you'd rather be dealing with. And third, the cost of a 6-year IRS audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. Now, on the other hand, if you have put your asset protection trust package in force prior to the revaluation, and you have assigned your currencies to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if the revaluation of these currencies were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. And second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends in certain situations. Now, philanthropic giving can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through our specially designed gift subtrust, which is part of our trust package. And because you're gifting to them through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, the specific language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you have gifted to them through this gift subtrust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10,000 of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV package of asset protection trusts is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Now, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000. The value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy referred to as segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts, and I'll give you an example to show you how this would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. Purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you've got $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by your master trust. This is what constitutes the package. Now, how does this protect you? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole, and this is critical. all of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question. Therefore, the plaintiffs have no standing to pursue a separate legal uninvolved entity. So your package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trust prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with a direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to these newly formed entities. We will also have our tax specialists there as well. Now that you've acquired this rather substantial amount of wealth, you're going to need to understand some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally reduce your tax exposure. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to need to reposition assets after the revaluation and get most of that money out of the banks for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the respective taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So this is another reason to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets. Lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-backed Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets in order to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, financial accounts like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and is authorized to manage the other sub-trusts, one optional gift sub-trust, which can at any time be converted to a standard sub-trust, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians about a decade ago, we realized that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by simplifying that package and back-end loading the funding, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place and their affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your trust in force and your affairs in order prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons that we've stated here. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in just a moment. Before we do, I'd like to share some information with our newer callers about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this niche area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, thanks for taking the time to listen to this call. I'm going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. If the things we've discussed are of interest to you, again, I suggest you have a pen and paper handy so that you can contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Now, the package does include everything you need should you decide to proceed with the establishment of a trust package. But again, you're under absolutely no obligation. The decision is entirely yours. There's a lot of information in there about us, about trusts, about the currencies and the revaluation. I think you'll find it very informative. So I'm going to open the Q&A in just a moment. 2 quick rules on our Q&A. We don't take service calls on our Q&A. Our clients can contact us by phone or email if they have service questions. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the Dinar reinstitutes in country, emails may go out as often as weekly. So let's go to our calls here. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Praveen from New York. I have a question. Will the Iranian, if Iran decides to retaliate, will that affect the RV?
No. Iran will not even consider any form of retaliation of any substance as long as Donald Trump's the president, and he's going to be there through January. So I don't see any problems at all with Iran, certainly nothing that will not be dealt with rather swiftly.
And what about Biden?
Now we're getting into the politics of it. I don't think that Biden is going to be able to stop the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar, although he will be much more friendly to Iran. I don't see that being a problem. Now, what I'm going to tell you right now is my personal opinion, and this is only my personal opinion. I don't think he will ever set foot in the Oval Office. That's my personal opinion.
Oh, okay. So you think the Supreme Court's going to may overturn all the mail-in ballots or something, or enough of it?
I think the level of fraud is just now being realized. It's much more substantial than people think, and I personally don't see any way Trump will not be reelected for a second term.
Well, because I was watching Hannity last night. There were some people that came forward. They said that there was a lot of fraud and something in the ballots.
There's two issues. One is the classic fraud practice of stuffing ballots, of losing ballots, of forging ballots, etc. The second is the manipulation of the tabulation with the computers, both domestically and on foreign soil. All of that stuff's being dealt with. Again, this is my... Regardless of how this works out, I don't think it's going to affect a reevaluation. But certainly, if Trump is reelected, it's full steam ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Jim, it's Clay Blackwell. How are you?
Yes. Okay, my friend. What's up?
Well, you know what? I was looking at your program, and I decided to hold off until after this election because I was hoping that Donald Trump would be in there. But what I'm concerned about is William Barr, his attorney general, is even saying there was no fraud in that election.
That's not exactly what he said. What he said was he has not seen evidence of substantial fraud. Remember, he's the DOJ. He does not prosecute. if he receives a criminal referral, then he will. I mean, he doesn't investigate; he prosecutes. But in that same statement, he also named Durham as a special prosecutor. So
okay.
I put very little into that. And remember, he has to maintain the appearance of objectivity. He is not Donald Trump's guy, and he's been, as a matter of fact, people have been disappointed with him because he didn't file criminal charges or indict some of these FBI people. Now, one can argue that he just didn't see enough there, but the other issue could be he wants to wait till Durham's completed with his investigation, which will be completed before the end of the year. So,
well, they're supposed to certify that election by December 14th.
Yes, but remember, even if the election's certified, that does not mean you can't challenge it. As a matter of fact, in 1960, and during that election, the state of Hawaii officially certified Nixon as the winner. Kennedy challenged it, and he won. So you can challenge a certification. The people that certify are running a risk because under penalty of perjury, they say they have no evidence of fraud or any malfeasance. So they run a risk. Unless they can show it's an honest mistake, they're going to have a problem. Now, this idiot in Arizona that went ahead and certified, while the hearings were going on for the state legislature about the fraud, went ahead and certified. That individual could have gotten himself in a lot of trouble. Now, why would someone do something like that if they already know they've done something wrong and they're desperate? That's the only thing I can explain. If you go to your Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, it's the legislature that certifies, not the governor, not the state attorney general. So this thing is long way from...
So the certification is nothing more than a protocol issue.
Precisely.
Okay. The next question I have, Jim, was you'd mentioned the WTO and Iraq being admitted into that organization. Do they have to have a viable international currency? Do they have to be on the Forex absolutely to be in that group? Or is there different sections or subsections that they can join where they don't have to meet that criteria?
Well, if they don't get their currency on the Forex, membership is a moot point because the only way they're going to be able to do international trade is for a country to convert to the U.S. dollar, then to do their business with Iraq using the U.S. dollar. They don't want to do that because there's fees involved in that. So they could be part. The reason the WTO is bringing them in is because evidently the government of Iraq has shown them a glide path to the reinstitution of their currency. So it's impractical for them to be there. So either they're going to reval or reinstitute prior to the getting into the WTO, or it's going to happen concurrent.
And that's supposed to happen in January.
And that's supposed to happen in January.
So if the IMF has opened up the doors to Iraq to start lending them money again, can they pay that money back with a program rate, or do they have to have a viable international rate?
They pay it back in the U.S. dollar. If they're going to pay it back, they probably don't have to pay right away. But as soon as they enter as soon as their currencies reinstitutes, then the IMF is going to, certainly within 10 to 30 days, reval globally, and then they'll use that currency to make the repayment.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you mentioned, and you do this every time we have one of these little meetings, but you mentioned that you were involved in the Kuwaiti revaluation, which happened a lot quicker. Tell me this: when the individuals who were holding Kuwait dinar, how did the government view it back then? Was it income, or was it considered capital gain?
You know, the mistake I've made, I paid income tax, but the reason I paid income tax is because I'd only held the Kuwaiti dinar for 4 months when I exchanged it. So I paid ordinary income. So even if it was long-term, short-term, if you only hold it for less than a year, you're going to pay the ordinary income tax. Now, the difference with that was you had to go to Kuwait to do it. So our group had to contract someone that went to Kuwait to do the exchange for us, and we had to pay them all of their expenses plus 15% of the profit. So we got dinged on that. Plus, then they had to pay ordinary income. So,
well, that's better than losing your head.
No. It was the best day in the office I had up to date. But what's going on, I mean, if the dinar comes back at 10 cents, it will dwarf what I made on the Kuwaiti deal.
Absolutely. Gotcha. And then the last question I have is, in reading through your website, and you've mentioned this before, if we sign on to this trust, we still don't know at this point if the IRS is going to tax the trust, whether that money is revalued or not.
I've said this before on the call, we've gone to the IRS. They've declined to respond. We are going, once the currency reinstitutes in country, we're going to go back and argue that the tax should be cap gains outside of a trust and tax deferred in the trust pursuant to sections 980, 82, and 643B, and that we will consider filing suit unless we get a timely response.
Okay. But you also mentioned in there that it might be wise to pay the tax on the money.
Well, if they don't give us an answer, we're going to have to protect ourselves by paying the ordinary income and simultaneously filing for a refund citing 980, 82, and Section 643B. We don't want to have to go that route, but if you decline to pay the tax and they call it ordinary income, you're done, because if the tax is 50% and the penalty is 100% of that, you're done. You're cleaned out.
You're done. You're cleaned out. Okay. All right. Well, that answers my questions, Jim. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yes, sir. Take care. All right, our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. This is Doug Reeves in Oklahoma City.
Before you go any further, did you get my email from yesterday?
I did not. I looked in my email this morning, and I had not seen it, but I will recheck after the call.
Well, you will receive the trust in question today or tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was an email I sent you yesterday.
Okay. All right. Okay. The question. In following up to Clay's discussion, if the IRS decides to take a different stance on the laws governing the taxation of irrevocable trusts, wouldn't that piss off a lot of people that have had irrevocable trusts for quite some time? I mean, we're not the only people that have these trusts, and I would imagine that, there are many wealthy people that are not dinarians that have irrevocable trusts. The likelihood of them changing their position would be, catastrophic for some of these people that had used the trust for tax planning purposes. So,
well, it's interesting that you bring that point up, because one of our arguments to the IRS, if we need to make it, is that many of our affluent clients have historically used that tax deferral for other assets, land contract deals and things like that. So how can you say they enjoyed the tax deferral and then somehow we can't here? So, yeah, that's a good point. But now, we've always marketed these trusts on the asset protection. We've never said, you need to do this because of the tax deferral. We're simply saying that might be icing on the cake if the IRS is, but you're right, the IRS is going to have to explain why the clear language of the code doesn't apply here.
Right. Okay. So I had another question, but I can't think of it. If I think of it, I'll sign back in. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Maybe the next guy will ask it.
No, thanks.
All right, Doug. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. I'm guessing that's Les.
No more guessing. It's me. What's up, Jim? This is Les.
Same old, same old.
All right. How's the professor?
He's doing fine. He's recovering from Thanksgiving, too.
Still recovering?
Well, when you eat 40 pounds of turkey, it takes a while to clean that all out of your system. I'm doing the same thing.
Oh, my goodness. That's terrible. That's terrible. But picking up from where the last caller left off with this letter, you were telling the caller that the IRS would have to explain why we wouldn't have to pay taxes. It wouldn't matter if they gave me an explanation or not, but if they said you're not responsible to pay any taxes, and that's on their letter, it's acceptable. I don't need an explanation.
No, right. No, well, of course, if they send us the letter, that's the defense we will use if the IRS comes back later to nail any of our clients. The point I was trying to make is once the currency reinstitutes, they can't play games with us. We are legally entitled to a written explanation of what the tax implications are, because otherwise our clients is subject to a penalty. They just can't allow that.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving on. So Biden has all these taxes he's going to implement if he should get in office. And the one thing that I heard them say that he was including was property left to children would be subject to a really high tax rate. I can't remember what it was. Maybe you know it. And all these people that are making these laws, they have all of their stuff protected. So they put these tax laws out to take a tax from the property being left to the children of the ones, the parents that have left it to them, they take from. So you never have a chance to come up. But keep in mind, the president and all the lawmakers probably have their property and all their assets protected with the same kind of trust. And him coming in, putting these laws up, I think it's just ridiculous.
Well, it is. And remember, if you look at his, and if you just an overview of his tax plans, they come to something like $4 trillion. Now, then he goes out and says, I'm not going to tax anyone. That I'm only taxing people that are making over $400,000. Well, number one, if you took all of their wealth, that still wouldn't equal $4 trillion. So that's just, the guy has a problem with basic math. The other thing is if he rescinds the Trump tax cuts, most of the benefit there was the double personal exemption and child tax credit. If you take that away, you don't have to raise the tax bracket, but you still have exposed more of their income to taxation. So, Biden has been full of crap for 47 years, and he's full of crap. He just is. It is what it is. That's a fact, John. He's full of crap. It's a fact. You can hate on Trump all you want. Biden's full of crap.
I agree.
And there's a lot more going on globally. He's going to lay down for China. He's going to lay down for Iran. He's going to lay down for the EU. He's going to put us back into TPP, which will destroy our car industry. He's going to substantially increase the corporate tax, which is going to farm jobs out. The galling part of it is after he destroys everything and blows everything up, then he's going to say it's Trump's fault. The guy's full of crap. It's disgusting. It's just disgusting. And I honestly, of course I could be wrong. My honest opinion is he will never set foot in the Oval Office.
Well, I hope that is the case.
Yeah,
I hope that is the case.
What's the Democrats' plan B if he should stumble his way in there? They're going to whip out the 25th Amendment, say he's not mentally competent, and they're going to slide Kamala Harris in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't keep you up at night. Nothing will.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
My last question.
Yeah.
My last question pertaining to the digitizing of the auctions. So if they're going to always have the auctions, they just have to digitize them so everything is legitimate, recordable?
There's not going to always have the auctions because after the currency reinstitutes, they won't need to sell the currency to get U.S. dollars. They won't need the auctions any longer. I think what they're trying to do is appease the powers that be, and they know they can't stop the auctions right now to close that deficit. The loans aren't enough, so they're at least trying to clean it up and say, okay, but they're going to be legit. We're not going to be skimming.
Well, it sounds like that's another excuse to delay. if it's not going to mean anything, why not?
Because they still need the U.S. dollar. Until they reinstitute, they still use the U.S. dollar. They have to have the auctions to acquire the U.S. dollar. The difference now is they're saying, now we're going to literally closely monitor this, reduce all of the transactions cost, and eliminate the corruption and the skimming, the double dipping being done through this little arbitrage that some of the corrupt officials in Iraq have been using. So that's the deal.
Okay. So the fact that they weren't supposed to get another loan, which is what we were told some months ago, they turn around and they still give them another loan.
Remember what I said, though. I said, remember, the IMF has a long history of sort of backing off, extending loans. They've done it in the EU. They did it to Greece. They did it with Italy. They did it with Portugal. They did it with Ireland. They sort of like the control of having these people owe them money, but they know they don't want the country to go under. So when it looks like things are real shaky, they come back and cough up a little bit more cheddar, and that's exactly what they've done with Iraq. They're trying to help Iraq get through the rest of this year, hoping, like everyone else, that they pull the trigger in January and reinstitute their currency.
Oh, I just come up with another good idea here. Question. So we've got Moderna and we've got Pfizer.
Yeah.
Moderna has scheduled next week to go over releasing the approval or whatever it is for this treatment for the coronavirus.
They're allowing its emergency use prior to FDA approval is what they're doing.
Okay, but they're waiting till next week. Doesn't sound like an emergency to me. But then we have Pfizer, who's already approved it. What's up with that?
I couldn't tell you. There's something up with it. I just, I couldn't tell you about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm done. Thanks, Jim. Good hearing from you. Missed you last week.
Well,
enjoy the rest of your week.
I meant a week before to say there wouldn't be a call last week, and I neglected to do it. And when I realized it, I was on the road. I said, there's nothing I could do about it.
That's okay. The faithful, we were here. The faithful were here, even though you weren't. But that's okay.
Yeah. All right.
Take it easy. All righty.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye. Looks like Doug got back in here. Hey, Doug, you remembered your question?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
All right. Sure.
But first, I'd like to make a comment on the little thing you said about putting Kamala Harris in. I've often thought that, following the 22nd Amendment, it's all about succession. And if a president is out of office within the first 2 years of his presidency and the vice president takes over, that vice president is eligible for one more term in office. However, if it's a day past the second year in office, then that vice president has the ability to be reelected 2 more times. So I think the plan is for them to try to secure the White House for the next 12 years. Basically, they'll keep Biden in until the day after the second year, and then he'll have some medical emergency where Kamala Harris will have to take over. Then she's eligible to serve out that term, plus be reelected 2 more times. I think this is a 12-year play on the White House.
That may be true, but here's what screwed it up for them. Regardless of how this election turns out, a significant amount of fraud has been determined. The Dominion computer system will never be utilized again. No votes will ever be tallied offshore. The Democrats cannot win an election fair and square, and they're going to be facing a fair and square election. Second, if they are successful in putting their policies in place, they definitely will not be reelected. Because this country was humming before the coronavirus. Now we're experiencing a V recovery. They pumped the brakes on that, and they've lost their ability to cheat. They'll never get reelected.
Well, I hadn't thought about that from that perspective. I was just thinking of maybe from the concept of what their plan might have been.
I agree. Yeah. Oh, yes. We get up every day and go to work. They get up every day and try to figure stuff like this out. They're all over this. For the last 30 years, we've been asleep. They've taken over academia. They've taken over the media. They've taken over government agencies. They've infiltrated everything. And for 4 years, what we've seen is basically disgruntled employees, not elected officials, disgruntled employees greasing the skids and doing everything they can to obstruct. And I think the American people are starting to catch on to this, and I don't think they're going to put up with it for much longer.
Well, back to my original thoughts. The Middle East is changing so fast. Kirshner was over talking to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia this week, and I know he doesn't pull the final strings, but he has a different thought process than the King of Saudi Arabia does. Out of that meeting comes the fact that commercial air flights can fly over and use Saudi airspace, and the Saudis have given the tacit approval, sort of look the other way, for the fact that if Israel needs to fly to Iran, that they can use Saudi airspace to do it. So from that perspective, we have some Middle East countries signing on to peace agreements. If Saudi Arabia signs on a peace agreement with Israel, that's going to change the dynamics of that region so much that if Iran was going to do something, they're going to have to do it, fairly quickly, because the Saudis are not going to let the Iranians pull off another cruise missile attack on their refineries. They're
right.
Just not going to let it happen.
And remember, another reason that makes it difficult for them to do something quickly is Donald Trump's still president, and he said that he has said publicly more than one time that the next target is going to be their oil fields. Their 5 major oil fields produce something like 80% of their revenue. So you mess with their oil fields, they are done. They're done.
Well, actually, all you'd really have to do is take out Karg Island off the coast, because that's where everything is pumped to, and it puts it on the ships there. If they took over Karg Island, they could just leave the oil fields alone, because they'd cut off.
Right. That's strategically correct too. So
they wouldn't even need to bomb the field. They just take over Karg Island. So
I think the next 30 days are going to be before Christmas. I think this is going to be extremely interesting. There's a lot on the line right now. It's going to be very interesting.
Well, I was listening to Clay, and he was talking about the electors certifying elections. I think, isn't that date December the 9th? Don't they have to have those in by December the 9th?
I thought it was the 14th. I could be wrong.
Yeah. So from the perspective of maybe the point of perjury is, you're right. If they find out, I was disappointed, obviously, to hear that Arizona had moved to certify for Biden, because my brother lives down there, and he said there's no way that Biden could have won that state.
Yeah, that's McCain country.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
McCain.
Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that Fix was in the swing states, and it doesn't mean it's going to work out that way. But I just have a feeling that the DOJ, Trump, and all of them have a lot more to share with us, and they're bringing it out every day. They'll bring something out, and the media and the Democrats will slap it down, and then they'll bring something else. And at some point, it's going to be obvious what was going on here. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, I hope so. I hope it works out.
By the way, one thing I wanted to mention to you, because I know you have expressed concern about the dong. Apple announced that they're moving the production to Vietnam.
Really?
So, yeah.
You mean they're pulling their factories out of China?
They're talking about, not necessarily all of them, but they're talking about the new I don't know what it is, the 12 something max producing. They say there's not going to be produced in China. It's going to be produced in Vietnam. So that bodes well for the dong.
Boy, does it ever.
Yeah, check that out.
Well, I will. Well, thank you very much. Of course, missed you last week, but I figured out why. Everybody was on their way to Thanksgiving. And
I screwed up. I should have said something on the prior. I don't know why I didn't think to do it, but I didn't. But I didn't realize it until I was literally in the car driving on Wednesday.
Well, thank you. And I'll check the email. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Take care, Doug. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We have another caller here, area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Jim. This is Tom in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir. What's up, Tom?
One question. Well, my brother and I have decided to share our foreign currencies, as he has some that I don't, and vice versa. And I was wondering, in your opinion, whether or not it would be better to do it before it revalues or after.
Well, no. You want to? You mean you're gonna merge your currencies together?
No, we're just gonna take half of mine and give to him, and half of his and give it to me. You know, if his is dinar like mine, then we'd just subtract what he had from what my half to him. So, but
well, that it seems like if I give you half of mine and you give me half of yours, we're in the same place, right?
No, not necessarily. As he has them and I do not.
Oh, you have a different currency.
Yeah, plus the fact, too, that I have much more dong.
But what you're saying is, at the end of the day, you're both going to have the same amount of each currency.
Well, I'm not sure if that would be correct or not, but
well, what you need to do,
I have much more dinar than he has, and yet he still has some.
What you need to do is figure out what you need to do is figure out how much of each currency you want to share, and then you need to make a gift letter for that amount of currency. So I'm just going to make this up. Let's say you wanted to give him 1,000,000 dinar and 1,000,000 dong. You'd create that gift letter giving him 1,000,000 dinar and 1,000,000 dong, and if he's going to give you 100 trillion zim, then he's going to create a gift letter for that amount and give it to you.
Okay. This is already assigned to the trust, so...
Oh, it's all assigned to the trust?
Yes.
His too?
He has a trust, and it's his too.
All right. Well, then the way they would gift is you would gift him currencies. You could do it either way. You could do it through the gift sub trust, or you could just do it with a standard gift letter. But you need to decide what each of you are giving the other and create a gift letter for that gift.
Okay.
All right, because then you're subjecting each other to a gift tax. So make sure that whatever you give him, you create a gift letter, and whatever he gives you, he creates a gift letter. Now. All right?
Okay. Before it revalues, anyway.
Yes, sir. Right now. Do it right away.
Okay, and I did enjoy the political comedy there, especially about what
we get into it once in a while. The lawyers probably don't like me doing it, but I gotta be when the questions come that way, I gotta answer them. But I always qualify it and say it's my opinion.
Well, it's my opinion. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, my friend. You take care.
You too, Jim.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Well, Thomas, our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. If the things we've discussed are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our no-obligation package. We'll be happy to get it onto you. It does include everything you need should you make the decision to proceed. But again, you're under no obligation to do so. Of course, our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out. and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.